Today's podcast is brought to you by AlleyRepair.com. Don't leave your skee-ball machines lying around collecting dust in the basement. Let AlleyRepair.com bring those machines back to life. High-quality workmanship for your skee-ball playing needs. Contact AlleyRepair.com today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fro Life Wrestling Podcast. I know at the end of episode 10, I said that I was going to wait till after the Rumble to put another one out, but there's just so much stuff going on in the world of wrestling right now that I felt the need to just make sure I did one more before tomorrow night's big event. So we're going to grab all the little tidbits that I bumped into over the last couple days in the world of wrestling, just so we can get an idea of what's been going on. There's some exciting things out there. So I'm going to start off with, a lot of people who follow the main programs, the Raws, the SmackDowns, and things like that, and who are fans of NXT know that tonight is the NXT TakeOver show, which is a huge show. But I also want to point out there's another show going on tonight that is pretty important. And if you're not someone who has access to the network, and if you're not going to be watching the NXT TakeOver event, you might want to try checking out a different company, and that's Evolve. Evolve has Evolve 77 coming out tonight, and not because the talents there are on the par with NXT right now, though some of them are, but because tonight will be the farewell appearance of Chris Hero, who, for anyone who's followed NXT for any length of time, would know Chris Hero plays the character named Cassius Ohno. We've talked about him here on the podcast before. He's one of the most talented, world-renowned talents that there is. He's been everywhere. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Ring of Honor, pretty much everywhere that's not WWE. And he's been to WWE before in NXT, never made it to the main roster. He always gets a knock on him because he has kind of a gut. He doesn't fit the typical picture-perfect pro wrestler stereotype, but he's an amazing talent, and he has recently returned to NXT in his Cassius Ohno persona, and looks like he's going to be challenging Shinsuke Nakamura if he comes out victorious tonight for the NXT title. If not, I'm sure that they can spin that into a feud with Bobby Roode, but either way, Chris Hero's killer talent, and tonight he's going to be at Evolve 77 facing Zack Sabre Jr. in his farewell match. And the two of those guys, in all reality, some of the best talent that's not on the main roster of WWE in the world. So they I'm sure will put on a phenomenal match. And if you're not going to be watching NXT TakeOver tonight, might be something you might want to check out. Go to their website, take a look at it. Get familiar with a new product. The United States independent scene has been up and coming for quite a long time, and now there's some companies out there like Evolve, like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, places like that really put out a killer product. So if you haven't taken an opportunity to check those people out before, go onto YouTube. Pull up some videos of Chris Hero, Zack Sabre Jr., any other. Type in the name of the company. Type in Evolve 76 to see their last show and see if something pops up on YouTube, and just get familiar with their product because it's really a great production. Triple H. I had to talk about this because it bugs me. I read yesterday that Triple H is currently unhappy with where NXT is at. And it's kind of frustrating to hear a guy like Triple H say that, because I feel like in the history of the World Wrestling Entertainment, it's been well documented that Vince McMahon is really good at making a decision on something and then forgetting that he made that decision, or forgetting talents altogether. I know somebody was joking about a year ago when Gallows and Anderson came to the company that he didn't even remember Gallows being Festus when he was in WWE before. So it's always frustrating to hear people say stuff like that, because Vince, you're the head of the company. You should always know who works for you, and you should never forget those people. And you should also pay attention to what they're doing elsewhere, because you may want to bring some talents in. So when you hear Triple H complaining about the rebuilding process in NXT, that he's not satisfied with where it's at right now because they're rebuilding, it's almost bizarre, because I want people to think about this for a minute. Last year after WrestleMania, when they did the brand split, they completely raided the roster of NXT. How is NXT supposed to be any better than what it is right now when you take all their top stars? And the reality is, we're getting ready this weekend for the Royal Rumble, one of the biggest pay-per-views personally. I mean, I love WrestleMania, don't get me wrong, and that's obviously the biggest show of the year, but the Royal Rumble is like, if WrestleMania is the A pay-per-view, this is 1A, because it's a killer event every year. It's typically one of the more well-produced pay-per-views, and there's usually some great storylines that come out of it. And with that going on, and hearing a comment like this from Triple H, you have to wonder, it's like, Triple H, do you remember, you got 3 talents from NXT right now that are possibly going to your show tomorrow night. You keep pulling the talents from NXT. It is a developmental territory. That's really what it is. So you're supposed to be pulling talent all the time. If you're not happy with where the product's at, maybe you ought to be promoting people a little quicker. Maybe you ought to be helping them a little quicker, get to television exposure. I saw over in the last couple days, for those who watch Tough Enough, that guy, Mata, the huge Egyptian-looking dude who I thought, from the first episode of that Tough Enough season, I thought that guy was going to be a beast. He apparently has asked for and was granted his release from WWE. If you're going to have somebody like Mata come in, Tough Enough was a year and a half ago. Why is he still toiling and never getting on television on NXT? If you can't produce talent quicker than that, then you need to start looking even more at the independent scene, because your self-homegrown people are not getting there quick enough. So, and I'm not talking about for the main roster. I'm talking about just for NXT. You don't see Mata. I couldn't tell you the last thing. What the heck's the guy's name? Bronson, whatever. The guy who won Tough Enough, the Yeti dude. He's not a big factor yet. It's been a year and a half. Get on with it, Either the kid's got the talent or he doesn't. Bronson Matthews, is that his name? I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's hearing Triple H complain about NXT is somewhat frustrating. It's his baby. If it's not where it needs to be, it falls on his shoulders. And it almost made it sound like, from the way he said it, that he was somehow blaming the talent. And the talent in NXT is as good as it's going to get. You've got some world-class people there. Samoa Joe, Nakamura, Ty Dillinger, Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode, just for the record, Bobby Roode was a TNA World Champion. Samoa Joe, a TNA World Champion, and they've been toiling in NXT because they didn't want to bring him right to the main roster like AJ Styles. Well, good Lord, you're wasting all that talent. So, if you're going to waste the talent in NXT, don't be complaining about NXT. You've got some of the best wrestlers in the world. If you don't like the product, then you're not using Bobby Roode correctly. You're not using Samoa Joe correctly, because those two guys alone could tear the house down. So I'm going to move past NXT, sort of. I'm going to stick with NXT for a takeover tonight, and not necessarily the show itself, but I'm really excited that Nigel McGuinness is going to be at takeover tonight. I think they must have really enjoyed his work on the UK tournament. I know I have always been a fan of his. If you go into my video library, I've got, he against Daniel Bryan when he was Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, and all that kind of stuff from Ring of Honor. This guy is just amazing, always was. Ended his career really short. It's really a shame. But to see him finally have somewhat of a role in the biggest company in the world is awesome. Because he really, Lord knows how his career would have gone if he was able to continue to compete. But since he's not, he's contributing in what I think is one of the best ways he can. And I hope at some point they get him down to the Performance Center, because I think he offers, I don't want to say a unique perspective on how to wrestle and how to present yourself, but he definitely was a very unique character in Ring of Honor. Again, if you've never seen Nigel McGuinness, or if you want to use his TNA persona when he was in TNA for a short time, Desmond Wolfe, check him out, Google him, YouTube him, whatever you got to do. He's a killer wrestler, and now I'm really happy that he's in the broadcast. It looks like he's going to be in the broadcast team for TakeOver tonight. Going to move on to Goldberg. Goldberg had a really cool bit this week where he spoke about his relationship with Vince McMahon, about how back in 03 and 04 it's not the same as it is now, that they've all grown up and he has a family now, and he's become a better businessman and all this kind of stuff. And I'm happy to hear that, because it tells me that he and Vince have come to some kind of working arrangement where there's actually, it sounds like an open dialogue. And who knows, maybe he will work more opportunities in the future. He clearly has the body for it, even at 50. I saw somebody put up a side-by-side, I think it was on Facebook or something, of Goldberg from 1998 and Goldberg from 2017. And short of the whiskers being a little different color and a hair of muscle tone, the guy looks almost identical. And if he was a monster back then, as long as his body can hold up and he's willing to make the touring around the country, give him a run. Why not? Bring him in as much as you want. He could, if you could bring Brock Lesnar back 4 or 5 times a year, why can't you do the same thing with Goldberg if he's open to it? So I was really happy to hear that Goldberg has that kind of relationship. Vince seems to be doing a lot of that with the former talents now, and I'm happy to hear that, because wrestling fans want to see the majority of the historic characters in WWE at the end of their career, so they can get Hall of Fame inductions and things like that. Which brings me to Kurt Angle, who, the really cool news yesterday was that Kurt Angle is going to be at WrestleMania Access. So for anybody who's never been at WrestleMania Access, there's a ton of memorabilia on display. You can go to an area and you could walk to the ring and have music play and videotape yourself doing that. You can act like a broadcaster and broadcast a match, for a historic match. There's just all kinds of fan interactive stuff. Play video games, compete. I know the one year they had like a video game competition against WWE stars, and it's like really cool stuff. And one of the things they have is a meet and greet, so you can go see certain old timers or current stars and get autographs and pictures. And Kurt Angle was announced that he's going to be at Access. What I found interesting about it, by the way, anybody who is going to be in town for the WrestleMania weekend and go to Access, he is considered a premium VIP appearance. He'll be there Sunday, April 2nd at 8 o'clock a.m. So if anybody's going to be at Access, that's when you got to go if you want to see Kurt Angle. But the funny thing I found about it is if you look at the Ticketmaster, the ticket purchasing, I should say, for the event, there's more than one level of ticket. You got a VIP ticket and you got a premium VIP ticket. And I was curious what the difference between the two of them was. What it turns out is if you pay almost twice as much money, you can get the premium VIP ticket. The premium VIP ticket includes an opportunity to get a photo op with Kurt Angle or Randy Orton or Dean Ambrose or Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns or AJ Styles. And it sounds good. Makes sense to me. I noticed that John Cena's name is not on that list, which is peculiar. You would think they would have one of their biggest stars there. But I see that list. And then the other ticket pricing point is at the VIP ticket, not premium, just standard VIP. If you get the VIP ticket, you get one photo op and signature session with either Sasha Banks, Enzo and Cass, Nakamura, Samoa Joe, Nikki Bella, Chris Jericho, Bray Wyatt, Bayley, or even Edge, who will be there signing on Sunday as well. And what I find interesting about this is what exactly makes it so that someone like Bray Wyatt, who has done everything this company's asked him to and has created one of the most unique and interesting characters, is not a premium VIP. You know, when I look at the people in the premium VIP section, you got all three members of the Shield. You got AJ Styles, Orton, and Angle. You know, Angle obviously is a Hall of Famer, but so is Edge. What makes Angle better than Edge? Edge is already in the Hall of Fame. What makes Orton better than Wyatt? Or Chris Jericho? Why is Chris Jericho not a premium opportunity? You know, you got to wonder if those guys are sitting in the back and they're like, hey, you know, why are you in premium VIP? How come I only got VIP? You know, opens up the door to some criticism. It's kind of funny. So we're going to move on, and I'm going to go to the NXT stars that are supposedly going to be at the Rumble. Nakamura is now being rumored to be showing up at the Royal Rumble. I hope so, because he should have been on the main roster to begin with. Samoa Joe has been the one that people have talked about the most, who actually has the most opportunity to win if you talk to the Vegas bookers. And Ty Dillinger. You know, I thought maybe Bobby Roode, but that's not his name hasn't come up. It's Ty Dillinger. And they were saying that I was reading on WrestleZone.com and Wrestling Observer that they really want to push Ty Dillinger's number 10 chant. So maybe he'll debut at the Rumble in the number 10 spot and make his main roster debut, which would be very cool for Ty Dillinger. Because, again, if you're not an NXT person, you're missing out if you don't know what Ty Dillinger can do in the ring. As far as other people in the Rumble, the big news yesterday was Conan coming out and talking somebody else's business. Conan letting the whole world know that Rey Mysterio's contract with Lucha Underground is up and that Rey Mysterio could go into the Rumble this weekend. Haven't really talked much about Rey Mysterio, and I know WWE has tried multiple different people to fill that Hispanic Latino population of the fans with people like Sin Cara and Alberto Del Rio and people like that. Rey Mysterio is the one who really, he and Eddie Guerrero are the ones who brought a lot of that audience to the show, and I think it's only fitting that Rey Mysterio get a final run with WWE before he ends his career. He's had so many knee surgeries, had so many issues over the years, but at the end of the day, he's still Rey Mysterio. People still love to see him. You know, I loved what he did with Lucha Underground. I think it was actually some of his best work he's done in the last several years, but again, it's not WWE, you know, so it'd be cool to see him. I want to throw something out there that's not WWE related, sort of, and that is for anyone who really pays attention to New Japan Pro Wrestling, which I'm a huge fan of. WWE last year brought Gallows and Anderson to WWE because of their impact in New Japan, and I have no problem with the move and signing them. I hate the way they've booked them all year. I think they should have been a dominant tag team all year. But when you look at New Japan Pro Wrestling, right now they have another team that belongs in World Wrestling Entertainment. Both performers have had a history in World Wrestling Entertainment, but they haven't been there in quite a few years, and they would really bring more legitimacy to the tag team division. You could shove Sheamus and Cesaro together and make a team, and it's working right now, but the reality is both of them are world title type competitors. But these two guys are not, but they make a killer tag team. There's a tag team in New Japan called the Killer Elite Squad. It is comprised of Davey Boy Smith Jr. When he was here in the United States in WWE, they called him Harry Smith, and Lance Archer, who was in TNA, and he also came to the old ECW before it turned into NXT. Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Lance Archer have been making a huge name for themselves in Japan, and if there is a team over there that they really need to target, I know a few weeks ago there was some comments about Tama Tonga and those guys coming over from Gallows and Anderson, giving them an endorsement, but reality is Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Lance Archer would be a perfect fit for WWE's tag team division. I'd love to see them in there with Enzo and Cass, or with Gallows and Anderson, which has been done in New Japan, but most of us, the American fans, haven't seen that. I have, because I'm a diehard, but a lot of people who aren't diehard and New Japan fans haven't seen that match, and it's a great match. The last segment I want to go into is not the Royal Rumble match itself, but the other matches, the peripheral matches around the Rumble pay-per-view, the betting odds for that, because it shows some interesting trends. First off, the WWE Championship match between AJ Styles and John Cena. Cena now is a huge favorite to win that match. I don't know that I like that. I actually would prefer John Cena not win that, because I think that no matter who wins that match, the title changes hands at Fastlane, and I hate seeing the title bounce around. So I'd rather AJ Styles kept the belt till Fastlane, but it looks like John Cena is the favorite to win the WWE Championship. The Universal Championship has been overwhelmingly in favor of Roman Reigns for like a month and a half now, and now within the last 2 days has switched. Kevin Owens is now the odds-on favorite to keep the Universal title at the pay-per-view. Which, if that's the case, and they are going to build to an Owens versus Jericho match at Mania, and it's for the title, they finally got something right. The Raw Women's Championship, Charlotte is the huge favorite to keep the title over Bayley, and I know there were some people who had commented when I saw that on some of the sheets, Wrestling Observer, WrestleZone, even eWrestling News is another great one. They all had the same story, and there were some people in the comment sections who weren't happy about that they thought Bayley should get the title, but you can't. You can't give Bayley the title in her first time out, because then you have nothing to build towards WrestleMania. This creates an opportunity to build the feud longer, bring Sasha and Nia Jax back into the equation to have that 4-woman match at Mania that everybody's rumoring is going to happen. And Neville is like the ridiculous minus 900 favorite to win the Cruiserweight title from Rich Swann, which I'm okay with, because Neville's a killer talent and he deserved to have some gold around his waist. I just wish it wasn't at the expense of Rich Swann, who I really like his work, and I think he's been doing a great job. That wraps up our topics for this week, but before we go, I want to send a special shout out to somebody who has been very supportive of this podcast. For a lot of people don't know me in my private life, but I'm an educator by trade. I'm a teacher, and I've had some great interactions with people throughout the years, students who've come back and been very appreciative of my instruction, and I always appreciate that. And one of them is a monstrous wrestling fan, and I know that he tunes into every single podcast. He shares my podcast posts with people on his own social media, and he drives traffic to our podcast, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So, without giving his name, he knows who he is, but he's got a YouTube channel himself called Custom Titantrons 101. If you get an opportunity, check this out, because he's taking all the top superstars of World Wrestling Entertainment and creating his own Titantron introductions with their music and video editing to make it look like, the professional ones that you see on Raw. Every time the Big Show's music hits, he's got his own Titantron entrance he creates to demonstrate each wrestler. The kid's amazing. He does custom covers for the 2K games every year. It's really cool stuff. So if you get a chance, go to Custom Titantrons 101 on YouTube and subscribe to his channel, because it's very cool stuff. And on that note, if you are listening to this podcast, which I'm going to assume you are if you're hearing me say this, please do me a favor. Either pop onto YouTube and subscribe, or by all means, please favorite us or subscribe to us on whatever service you're using. We love to hear from you guys. I got a message this morning from somebody who is very frustrated that they missed episode 9 and they have to go back and find it, and their alerts didn't tell them that I had posted it. And that's awesome to hear. I'm glad that whatever we're doing makes you happy. And as long as that's the case, I want to keep doing that for everybody out there, because I enjoy doing this, and I want to make sure what I'm doing is actually making other people as happy as it makes me. That's all the time I have for this episode. Check back with me in episode 12. We'll cover the Rumble. We'll cover NXT TakeOver, see what's going on in the wrestling world. As always, special thanks go to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects used in today's show. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with Sketchy People. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games and bring some fun and excitement back to family game night. Go to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. To the U.S. News & World Report Best Colleges 2017, available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. To AlleyRepair.com, contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade needs. And to A&B Education of Lansdale, bringing intercultural education to talented students from around the world. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. And if you act right now, we're doing free consultations over the phone to get you your initial evaluation to help you with your college planning for fall 2017. Don't wait. We're getting too close to the deadline. We need to get those applications out there and get you to the colleges of your dreams. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today, and we look forward to discussing more current events and rumors on our next show, and we'll get into all the Royal Rumble happenings and what's going on in the wrestling world. So long, everybody.